Holy shit, Scream Queens just genuinely shocked me, and it happened at the exact perfect time. Hey guys, coming over for Scream Queens, Season 1, Episode 10, Thanksgiving, and damn guys, finally! I have been waiting for an episode like this all season long, really I have. I mean, Episode 6 was a really great episode, okay? It was, like I said, probably the best thing the show's offered us. After this episode, no, this episode was perfect. It had everything I wanted, and everything I wanted to see it to be all fucking season long. Everything this show has given us all season is in this episode. Every great thing that I have loved about this show is in this episode. Wes was tolerable in this episode. They said it couldn't be done. It was done in this episode, and I loved it. We really start to realize why Wes is actually naive. There was character development here. There were some honestly pretty great dramatic moments. There was some really great there was some of the funniest stuff we've had in any episode in this. I absolutely loved it. I thought this was an amazing episode, and it had a genuinely shocking twist, guys, and a really good death too that I really didn't see coming. But let's just get in this episode because, damn, is there a lot to talk about. I mean, usually Scream Queens, they make it seem a lot more than it is, but this episode genuinely had a lot of stuff, and you would have thought this would have been a very filler episode because it's a Thanksgiving episode, the week when there's, like, nothing on TV. But no, they actually packed a lot of stuff in this episode, and I really love that. And I say there's nothing on TV because for the rest of the week, guys, this is it. I mean, I have a few things to review, but Jessica Jones, The Man in the High Castle, is going to be like the only thing I review for the rest of the week, pretty much, because there's nothing on Thursday, there's nothing on Friday, there's nothing on tonight, so yeah, let's get in this episode, though, because damn was it crazy. I did not expect this episode to be nearly as crazy as it was, but it really was pretty insane. So we start off right away, we get a really great scene. Something I love about this episode is that every scene was important. Every scene. There wasn't a scene in this episode that didn't feel like it wasn't important. There wasn't a scene in this episode that didn't have something going on. There have been a lot of scenes that have basically been illuminated to nothing but just making fun of horror tropes. Like last week's whole thing with number 5 leaving randomly to have that parody. Okay, yeah, that was funny, but we didn't really need it, and this episode had none of that. There was no Denise in this episode either, which I'm fine with because I'm kind of tired of her. But let's get in this episode. So we start off right away. Chanel's telling Chad, Chad's telling her that they need to get ready to go to his house for Thanksgiving, and he's talking about Hester and how she's gonna come and now Chanel can't. And Chanel tells him that Hester wasn't actually pregnant, and she tells him straight out that she pushed her down the stairs for their love, and he's actually not upset, and I'm not surprised that Chad's not upset with this. Chad was just, like, so great this entire episode. You guys know how much I love Chad. But, because, how sick and gross Chad is, he doesn't just want to see the body, which, we can understand. He literally wants to have a threesome with Chanel, the dead body, and himself, which obviously she finds disgusting. But because she cares about Chad so much, she does lead him to the meat freezer to show it to him. The body's not there for whatever reason. And Chad's suggestion, I thought, was really great. Really suggests that he actually is quite smarter than we make him out to be. Because he suggested Hester wasn't actually dead, and that because of how despicable she was, since, she's supposedly not pregnant, that she just got up and walked away after the Chanels put her there, and I completely agree with that. I mean, I've told everyone this. Hester's not dead. I knew Hester was not dead. It just didn't seem right, and it didn't seem like it made any sense. So when Chad said them, like, you know what, that's perfect, because I did not think Hester was dead either. So I'm glad that Chad said, you know what, Hester might not be dead. And I have to say something. Every, like, sort of theory brought up in this episode really didn't make a lot of sense. There wasn't any theory in this episode that I didn't feel made sense. I think every theory in this episode brought up is pretty plausible, especially since we're getting down to the end. Really gives us a lot to think about, and I definitely really love that here. So, that's basically what happens with that. We see Gigi and the Red Devil, they're in the hotel room, and something I like about the scene is that while the Red Devil didn't talk, they gave a reason for the Red Devil not to talk. They didn't just have the Red Devil talk because they didn't want to reveal who the killer was. They didn't have the Red Devil talk because she's obviously, since we know the Red Devil's a she's obviously mourning over the death of her brother, and, because obviously she wanted Boone to be there. It actually was really meaningful. I really like this scene, actually. I like that Gigi's trying to tell her, look, you're all the family I have, and, I thought it was very interesting that we saw that. She complains about not being able to spend the holiday with her boyfriend, but regardless, she thanks Red Devil for keeping her company. So, basically, the Red Devil really doesn't want her there. She really wants nothing to do with her. But moments later, room service brings them a meal. Gigi is about to cut it, and she thanks the Red Devil for being the closest she has to family. And because of the Red Devil being so close to her, she decides Red Devil should do the honors and hands her the knife. And you're pretty sure that she does care about Wes in this scene, which I actually like seeing because I really wasn't sure if she did. But it seems like she did in this scene. It seemed like she genuinely cared about Wes, and I like seeing that here. Because now we know that Wes isn't the one she wanted to take out. It was Boone that she wanted to take out, and I like that reveal here. But she hands her the knife, and that was definitely a really great scene. I really like that scene, and really, again, the episode was really off to great starts. But then we get to this scene, and this is really when the episode starts to get great. All the families met in this episode were completely over the top, completely ridiculous, and exactly what we need on this show. One exactly with their personalities. Chanel number 3, if you guys remember, Kappa Kappa Tau is not supposed to be going on right now. They've left to be with their families Thanksgiving. Nobody really leaves, because Chanel number 3 goes to spend Thanksgiving with her family, and they are probably one of the most heartless, arrogant, stuck-up families you could ever meet. And that's some of the best parts of this episode, is learning everyone's family, seeing their history, seeing what they have to go through. It really adds a lot to the characters. And Chanel number 3, no matter how ridiculous and dumb she is, I honestly felt bad for her here. I mean, she really is being neglected. They're sitting there watching TV. They're not even eating dinner like a family. They're literally sitting in front of a TV watching a football game. And rather than being like, oh, come to dinner, they're like, no, you're late. You should have cooked the food. You're sitting in the back. They're treating her like shit. They're really not treating her nicely at all. And she actually leaves. She actually was smart to leave, and I thought it was really great the way that Chanel number 3 was actually smart here. I've really loved Chanel number 3. She's probably my favorite of the Chanels, honestly. Although after this episode, I think Chanel probably is my favorite of the Chanels. Just after this episode, definitely, I will talk about that. But Chanel number 3, I thought was great this whole episode. And then the way she just left her family, I thought was very smart of her to do, because they don't give a shit about her, clearly. They want to sit and watch TV. Fuck you then, just leave. I thought that was really smart that she did that. So she ends up leaving, she goes back to campus, and she finds Munch preparing a turkey, and I love how we see Munch chopping it with a knife, and she's like, what? You thought that we didn't have they don't have much food there, obviously, and I like how she said they were limited on things, but it does make her very suspicious, which I did like seeing here. So basically, seems like they're gonna have their own little quiet Thanksgiving, and we then see that Grace is on the phone with Wes. She does not want to spend Thanksgiving with Wes, for good reason. She really doesn't trust him right now, and, he's saying how Gigi's not here, he's all by himself, and, she's with Zayday. They're at Kappa Kappa Tau, despite the fact that they should not be there. They're there because they're her family. Zayday's her family, they didn't want to leave, and that's what they're doing there. So basically, Wes says, why don't I come with you guys? So he comes over, and basically that's what happens with that. So Wes was actually fine in this scene. I saw that he cared about his daughter here, which was fine. He's not listening to Gigi over his daughter. I like that. As long as he listens to his daughter, that's something I liked here. So Chad then takes Chanel to spend Thanksgiving with his family, and they are probably the most snobby, rich, greedy parents, you could think of. If you thought Chanel number 3's parents were bad, Chad's parents are even worse, which makes sense. Think of how fucked up Chad is. It really shows in the scene. His family is not much better. They each share one thing they're grateful for. They're all really stuck up. His brother, which, by the way, I love the names, that his brothers were named Brad and Thad, and his father was named Tad. That's just really great wordplay right there. That's how you make a really solid joke. Just have really great wordplay. A joke can just come from something as simple as just a word. That's really funny. The fact that his name is Chad and his brothers are named Brad and Thad, that's hilarious. I love that. I think that was really funny on its own, but just their personalities were so over the top, and I loved it. His mother is this really stuck-up woman who's very picky about people right away. She's very picky. His brother's extremely rich, but you also see that his brothers have really progressed in life, while Chad really hasn't. Like Brad, he's married, he has this wife, Muffy, who was really hot, by the way, Rachel Brooks Smith. She was definitely hot, I have to say. She was a bitch, but she was hot, I will say that. You see that Thad is doing well as well, and Chad, I believe, is supposed to be the youngest here. and he's really happy for them, obviously. He doesn't really think much of it. And Chanel's becoming more and more irritated by what Mrs. Radwell is saying. She's really annoyed. She's being more and more judgmental as it goes on, and she's not having it. She's not happy that she's there, and she wants really nothing to do with her, and I definitely like seeing that. I like seeing that Chanel had limits in this episode. Doesn't mean that they wrote very well with Chanel. Chanel felt like a character in this episode. She's felt like a character for a couple episodes now, and this is definitely, I think, the one where she feels the most fleshed out as a character. Like, we've seen all we need to see of Chanel. Like, we've really seen all of the sides of her in this episode, and it really came to a halt, and I definitely really liked it here. Because a lot of this episode was about pushing Chanel to her limits. How far can Chanel go? How far will it take for her to just, not be this stuck-up bitch and give up the act? And I definitely like seeing that. And if you guys don't notice, this episode actually had just 2 plots, which is something else I really loved. It only had 2 plots, and it stuck to those 2 plots. It wasn't overstuffed like some of the other episodes have been. So they're all having Thanksgiving dinner. You see Munch, she's with Grace, and Zayday's there too, as well as Chanel number 3. And they begin to argue over who they think the killer is, because, Munch wants to talk about it. And of course, Munch first says that Boone's the other killer, and then she thinks the other killer is Chanel number 3. And honestly, I think this was, like I said, I think every assumption made in this episode was pretty valid. The claims she makes for Chanel number 3, I think, do make some sense here. The fact that Chanel number 3, her father's Charles Manson, the fact that she's so dumb and things like that, I think does make a lot of sense, the way that she said that. But what was even greater was Chanel number 3's reason for why Munch could be the killer. The fact that she saw Munch eating bologna, you can definitely tell that they're starting to not believe her story about Feather. But Munch had like the funniest line in this episode. You guys know I don't usually like Munch. I loved Munch this episode. I don't know what it was, but they really wrote Munch very, very well. This is how you write Munch. Don't write her as this stuck-up bitch that does nothing and is just, like, ridiculous and not likable. She was really great here. I really liked her character. You saw her, she had valid claims on Chanel number 3. I thought Chanel number 3's claims were even better on her, but then Munch's line is her being like, have you even read a book? Like, do you even know how to spell a word? I thought was great because she used the wrong then, and I thought that was hilarious that we saw that. I definitely really loved that, and that was one of my favorite scenes of the episode by far. I thought it was definitely very, very funny. I really enjoyed that there, definitely. Very, very, very funny stuff there. I really enjoyed that. So then we go back to Chad's family. They're all going, it's actually going, not very well at all, honestly. It's really not going well. Chanel's becoming more and more annoyed by, Mrs. Radwell's arrogant remarks. But then things really take a turn once Hester arrives. Yes, Hester is alive. She faked her death, apparently because she was wearing her neck brace that saved her fall, and her being in the freezer apparently allowed her to stand up. I mean, I don't know. I think this episode kind of made Hester maybe a bit more sympathetic. Not really sympathetic, but I think it made kind of sense. But I'm still thinking that Hester's the killer. I really think she's the other killer. It really would not make sense, though, because obviously the Red Devil was with Gigi and Hester was not with Gigi. So that's the thing. The only thing about this episode is that everyone is somewhere. So who the fuck was with Gigi? That's what I want to know. Who was with Gigi and who could it have been? Because we saw every character in this episode. However, we don't know when what happened at the end of this episode happened. So it very well could be Hester. I will talk about this later, though. Obviously, Chanel doesn't understand why she's there. She apparently, Chad is this lie that she is his sober coach, which obviously isn't true, claiming he has a drink problem. I love that his family just bought it. It just shows how snooty they are. They will believe anything they hear. They're the kind of family that when they hear gossip, they'll believe anything. Really, that's the kind of family they are. But eventually, she does admit to having Chad's child, which she's obviously not. She's not pregnant. Chad is kind of believing that she is, but Chanel definitely doesn't buy it, and she doesn't want her there, obviously. Things are just getting really intense to the point where Chanel calls her father. She calls her mother, well, not her father, she calls her mother and says she doesn't want to be there. And this is interesting. I mean, I thought Chanel would have just wanted to stay there, have sex with Chad. They could have made a baby. I thought that's what Chanel was going to do here, that she was going to try to get pregnant so that way Chad wouldn't stay with Hester. I think that's what she would have done. But that's not what Chanel does, because we realize in this episode, Chanel's a better person than we think she is. We really do see that here. What Mr. Radwell says to her, I honestly think is true. He comes in, he offers her this check for a couple $1,000 if she leaves their house and never comes back, but she doesn't want it because she already has thousands of bucks. She's already very rich, she doesn't need it. I like what he says to her. He says, give up the act. We know you're fake. Everything about you is trash, and we know that. And honestly, I think it's true. Chanel's whole act of being this rich, snobby person, I don't think is real. I think it's fake. I think Chanel wants to feel like she's on top. I feel like Chanel wants to feel like she's on top and that she's queen bee, and in order for her to feel, content with herself, she needs to feel that way. When she's not, when she's vulnerable, she gets very, very emotional, and you really see that here. This is one of the first times we've seen the show where Chanel really is not on top this entire episode. She's kind of lowered because of this family that she's not used to having. She's not used to being in this rich, snooty family. She's never really had to deal with something like this before, and I think Chanel is really thinking about all the people she's hurt, really. I think she is thinking about that here, and I thought that was definitely very interesting that we found that out, and I like seeing that here. So we go back to Thanksgiving dinner. Zayday's there as well, and then we also see Chanel number 5 arrives, and I will say, like I said, Chanel number 5 accusing Munch of, if she was allergic to bologna, she would have, broke out into hives over the can of Spam she has, is a very good claim. I mean, they're definitely starting to not buy her story. So, and then basically they start to claim that they think that Wes thinks the killer could be Grace. And I was thinking, okay, this is going to be bullshit. You guys know how much I don't like Wes. This actually did make sense, though. They didn't make it so stupid like I thought they would, and I think it does make sense. Basically, they're claiming that because, her mother was murdered, because her mother really was the first murder, that she is taking it out, she's taking her anger on them. That does make a lot of sense, and I think that really does work for Grace's character. However, the thing that makes me most, thinking that she could be the killer is the story they told when she was on campus, when she was visiting the campus, and then apparently the Chanel number 4 died, apparently. I'm thinking the person they're talking about is Chanel number 4. No, they're not talking about Chanel number 4. It was a girl, though, when Grace was visiting campus, and then she died when she was there. So they're thinking that Grace could have been the Red Devil, and I think, Grace providing evidence as to why she couldn't be, and she thinks that it's Chanel. She thinks that Chanel could be the killer because of what her mother did to her, and because of what Chanel just, the fact that she killed Miss Bean. It does make sense what she's saying, and I definitely think that it makes a lot of sense there. So, we're then seeing that the Radwells are playing Pictionary, and they are being as insulting as they could possibly be. And I really love this scene. This honestly was one of my favorite scenes of the episode. Probably my favorite Chanel scene so far was this scene here. Because they're calling Hester trash, they're calling her a slut, they're calling her this evil stuck-up person, and I think Chanel realizes here, Hester's not all that bad. She's really not that bad, and she gets fed up. She's ranting about how Hester, is a good person and how they're not, and that they're all trash, and that she's never been more disgusted, and she even tells Chad, we're done, we're done, I don't want to see you anymore, if you're gonna stay with this family, and your family's like this, and you're just gonna go along with it, we're just done, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. And also, by the way, guys, I loved the scene where Chad was talking to Hester about what they do with the leftovers and just turn them into desserts. It's disgusting, but I honestly would imagine he'd do something like that. Just because of how disgusting he is, it made so much sense. And the fact that Hester wasn't turned on by this, I thought was very funny. I definitely like seeing that. Again, we were really pushing Hester to her limits as well. So, she apologized for trying to kill Hester, and she tells Hester that she really feels like a sister, and that she actually really loves Hester, and she cares about her, and she leaves all the Radwells. It's a really sweet scene, because Hester's not mad at Chanel. She tells Chanel she's always wanted to feel like a sister to her. She's always wanted to feel happy about herself. And while I don't really buy this, I loved seeing Chanel actually caring for someone, not with this whole I'm queen bee and you're better and I'm better than you act. That's all gone. Chanel cares about Hester. This has made her a better person, and I really love that. This Chanel I want to see all the time. I want to see the Chanel that cares about people. I want to see the Chanel that gets treated like shit and then basically having to just show her true colors, which I definitely love seeing. I think this is a great example of how Chanel cannot be the killer. She just cares about these people too much to be the killer, and she definitely is not. And she storms away accompanied by Hester, and they make amends, and I definitely love seeing that. Like that we found out that, they made amends there. So that was a really great scene. So Pete then shows up, basically, and I like Pete in this episode because there was no scenes of him and Grace, doing some investigation. Those scenes were really boring. They actually made it interesting here. He tells a story that he has compiled evidence that he has dug up claiming that Wes is the killer. And this, I think, does make a lot of sense because Pete reveals that by bribing a government official with drugs, he discovered that apparently Wes was a bit of a party guy. He was a bit of a party heart, he's a bit of a party, just really into parties and things like that. And because of that, he doesn't remember a lot what happened. And he discovers that Wes was Boone's father, and he is the father of the other bathtub baby. And Wes has no recollection of this because no one used condoms in the 90s, apparently. And Wes talks to Grace and tells her that he didn't know how he knocked up Sophia, and he didn't know that he had sex, that Boone happened because of that. And I think this is confirming that Grace could be the killer, because think about it. You got Boone and you got Grace. I mean, they're clearly related. They know each other. They are together, they have been brother and sister. However, could Hester be his stepsister? We don't know anything that happened with Boone, and Grace didn't even know Boone existed till now. So what happened with Boone? Was he put up for adoption? I mean, I want to find out more what's going on here, because Wes's claims don't really make a lot of sense here. Him saying he doesn't know he knocked up Sophia. He doesn't tell Grace anything really. Doesn't tell her, was Boone's, was Boone, where was Boone taken? That's something I like, is they're leaving that open. I don't think Wes even knows what happened to him. He didn't even know that Boone was, his son. He didn't even know this. So it's really sad because, you could have thought that Wes could have had a scene with Boone and something could have happened there. It's really sad. I honestly would have wanted this reveal to come a bit earlier, so we could have had a scene between Boone and Wes, and it could have been really good that way. But I think they did that because they don't want to reveal who the killer is, obviously. So that's why they didn't do that. So the two make up, and I like seeing Wes and Grace happy. I like seeing this here. So Zayday calls them home for dinner, and they're all actually getting along really well here. Chanel and Hester has arrived, and Chad does too, telling him that they're more of a family to him than anyone else, because his family's just snooty and stuck up and he doesn't want to be a part of it. He genuinely cares about Chanel. It's a really great scene. So, number 3 and number 5, they go to retrieve the turkey, and the ending of this episode, like I said, was genuinely shocking. She uncovers the turkey, and everyone's screaming in horror because it is revealed that instead of holding the turkey, the platter is Gigi's head, and that's how the episode ends. So, whoever the Red Devil was, they killed Gigi. Here's my thing here. I know some of you are going to be like, everyone was in this episode. There's no way that any of them could be the killer. I say bullshit. And you know why I say bullshit? They all came in at different times. Grace came in at a specific time. Number 3 came at a specific time. It could be anyone at this point. They really did a great job of making all these claims seem legit. They really seem legit. There was no Denise saying, oh, Zayday's the killer, da-da-da-da, all these reasons why. We've had that. I like seeing that we saw other people could be the killer, and I thought that was definitely very well done. I definitely like seeing that. Definitely really great stuff. I mean, definitely, there were some really great scenes here, like I said, and I think that some of the claims are definitely very true. However, the two people that are definitely the killer are, obviously Grace, I think, is a huge suspect now because of the fact that she's related to Boone. But remember, Grace doesn't know what happened to Boone. How could she have known that Boone was her brother? I mean, maybe there's something that Grace didn't know or something that didn't happen. We don't really know, but we'll have to see what happens with that. That definitely is going to be interesting. And then the other thing that we find, and then the other thing is, of course, Boone. Of course, Hester. Hester could very well be Boone's stepsister, because again, we don't know what happened to Boone after, you know, because Wes didn't know that Boone was his son. So I think that only means he was definitely put up for adoption. That definitely means that. And Hester could very well be his stepsister. I mean, we don't know what's going on there, and I think it really makes a lot more sense that way. This twist has finally shook things up. It really seems like we've been missing something all season long. We've been missing something. Something just hasn't been working, and it's just been that it's very, very redundant. I think that really is what it is, that this show itself has been very redundant. You know, who's the killer? Da-da-da, this person's the killer. I'm claiming this person's being claimed. We finally have something new, and I love that. And it came at the perfect time, because we only have 3 episodes left, and I think that's the perfect time to bring in a crazy plot twist like this, and it's made me even more invested than I already was. Not that I didn't care about these characters. I really do care about these characters now, honestly. Chanel especially, I really care about a lot more. You guys remember how much I hated Chanel in the first half of this season? I'm over it, honestly, because I don't buy Chanel's, I'm, you know, pretty and stuck up and everything. I don't buy it at all. I think Chanel's very insecure, and she wants to feel like she's in power, to feel content about herself. I think that really is what it is, that she's always been in power, and she hasn't been, and she doesn't want to not be in power. She's just so used to it. That's the norm for her. And I think it definitely is very interesting that we saw that here. I really love seeing this, you know, vulnerable side of Chanel. I thought it was a really great idea that we saw that, and definitely, I really love that, I have to say. Definitely, I thought that was very well done. So, basically, I thought, you know, like I said, I thought that was very well handled. I'm just checking some of your guys. I do feel like I missed something about Wes, so I'm just checking real quick to see if I missed something. Um, Let me just check this. Okay. So, like I said, the whole thing, with, you know, with Wes's claim, I think could be true. We know the only thing about this episode is that we know that the Red Devil is obviously a girl. We know that, because we know that the Red Devil is Boone's sister. So, we know, obviously, that it leads it to one of the girls. It's definitely not Chanel. I know it's not Chanel. That would not make sense if it was. Because, like I said, I really don't buy her good girl act. I mean, her stuck-up act. I think she's definitely a nicer girl than we've seen. I think it definitely, Hester and Grace, those are my 2 suspects right now. Maybe Chanel number 3, I'm not really sure. Maybe Chanel number 3, I mean, she clearly, there was something with Boone there, I'm not really sure, but, that's interesting. So, we'll have to see what happens, and I really love this twist, guys. It really has opened me up to a lot more suspects, and I definitely really like that. It's made things a lot more interesting, I'm a lot more into it, and these last 4 episodes hopefully are just as great. I mean, last 3 episodes, we have 3 episodes left, and I hope they're just as great, because if they can keep the momentum going that this episode had, this is going to be a really great reveal, and if they do the reveal the way they handled this episode, I'm definitely really looking forward to it. My only fear is that next week they're going to try to get Munch again, and that's going to be really annoying, because it's going to be a repeat of episode 7, but I do think it makes sense to maybe take Munch, because apparently she shuts down the campus after this. Interesting. But next week is the Black Friday episode. I like that they're kind of doing one episode focusing on a holiday, because it worked very well here, and I think it's going to work well next week too, especially if they do like an homage to Dawn of the Dead. That could be really cool if they did that. But let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I definitely really loved it. It did everything I've wanted in the show. It was funny. It had some great reveals. We have some really great plot twists going on. There's a lot of possibilities where it could be the killer. I love it all. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode. I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for a movie review, and I will see you guys for that. My reviews for The Affair, Homeland, Supergirl, they're coming. I don't know when, but they're coming. I'm going to watch them at some point. I'll probably watch them this weekend, because I want to focus on Jessica Jones, Man in the High Castle, and movie reviews. I want to focus on those. So those reviews will come at some point, but I do have an episode of Jessica Jones to review. I'm going to focus on that, but my next review will be for a movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.